next time in July, we don't have a program, we have a picnic. Everyone is invited. Please come to the Middle Harbor Shoreline Park, and there's a map that you can have to find your way, and RSVP to our own Sherry Aylesworth. Sherry, wave your hand so they know who you are. There you go. And call her or send her an email to let her know that you're coming. So
Make sure they know it's July, not JLY. I've never heard of that month.
oh, well, I had to do that to fit it in on the line. You're right.
Oh.
July. And if you can't understand that, well, then use the one in the wonderful flyer that Sherry created for us. Okay. Well, let me begin with the connection between Alzheimer's disease and the heart, part 2. And I am so glad that there are other people who wanted to learn more about Alzheimer's disease. Being part of the program committee, I learn a lot about many of the body's conditions, but in this year's survey that the membership you chose learning about Alzheimer's as the most wanted topic. So I'm so glad I'm not alone. And we do need to learn more. Scientists want to know more. Knowledge of Alzheimer's disease, like, of course, any form of healthcare, is always evolving, but this one has been around since 1906. It is estimated that 6 million people in the US and 35 million people worldwide currently suffer from Alzheimer's disease, and that number is expected to rise significantly, with a new case of dementia occurring every minute. Yet, in all this time, no one has figured out how to slow the progression of the disease, let alone prevent it or reverse its damage. Information about the causes of cognitive decline and dementia seem to revolve around a couple of concepts and studies. However, even the concept of amyloid plaques and tau tangles is still a working theory. It's called the amyloid hypothesis. One of my favorite history teachers had a bulletin board called Truth of the Past. On it was a picture of a snake oil salesman with this pitch: cures whatever ails you. A doctor promoted it. Past users said it worked. The ingredients were pure. So, how do you tell where the truth is? Today, we have several watchdog regulating organizations to scrutinize decisions that are made by the large drug companies, 2 of which are the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, and the CMS, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Could people who are moving around just mute themselves so that we aren't hearing all of that? Thanks. There are several treatments in various stages of trials, and it pays to watch the news to see what is happening. And as always, caveat emptor, buyer beware. Some of the additional known experiments with Alzheimer's drugs are the mRNA vaccines, therapies targeting both amyloid and tau tangles in combination, drugs that repair dysfunctional protein processing, tests including lecanemab in early asymptomatic patients with a buildup of amyloid but no other symptoms, and a blood test to detect beta amyloids in the blood like A1C does for cholesterol. So well, I didn't really want to speak about lecanemab just yet. The drug companies have been under congressional investigation. The FDA approved it, but the CMS said they won't support it and their doctors won't prescribe it. It's $26,000 a year, and the vote is still not in about how wonderful it is. So I think it's worth waiting to see what else happens before we jump at that as a wonder drug just yet. So why is that not working? So let's review. In this, I'll ask you a question and raise your hand or just say what the answer is out loud, okay? We don't have polling set up just yet. So who remembers what, if you were here on or this past April, what did we find out was the reason why the heart affects the brain, or guess? Anyone?
Laura, I'm going to guess because the blood supply to the brain is critical, and so the heart provides that blood supply.
That's exactly right. And in fact, they found that out by having a 35-year study of 10,000 people at Oxford University and the College of London that directly links heart health to the brain. As the heart arteries stiffen, this lowers the blood supply to the brain. So you are exactly right. And this was in that cute little tape from Australian Channel 7 News. Why is that not working? Okay. What risk factors are under your control for getting dementia?
There's several, aren't there? Diet and exercise.
Yeah, that's right, Sally. Diet, exercise, don't smoke, that kind of
Sleep.
thing.
Yeah.
Who knew you could actually control your dementia by doing things that are fairly easy to do? Diet, exercise, sleep, strengthening your immune system.
You know, Laura, I'm really happy you're talking about this because my mom suffers from dementia. Her father suffers from dementia. So pretty good odds I'm gonna get there at some point. So this is really helpful.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say it. I'm in the same boat. When I started realizing just how many of my relatives had different types of dementia, it made me sit up and take notice. Okay, so, but what are the risk factors for getting dementia that are not under our control?
Heredity.
Yes, heredity. Your family, your all those people that stand in our family trees behind us that might have had challenged by it. Your age, also family and genetic factors. And what's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's disease?
That's a great question, actually.
There is nothing. Alzheimer's is a form of dementia.
Oh, interesting.
Right, right. In fact,
Thank you.
yeah, dementia is the general term for a decline in mental ability severe enough to interfere with daily life, while Alzheimer's is a specific disease. And then they continue, Alzheimer's is the most common cause of dementia. And let me put in the chart that they gave online. If you start at the right on dementia, a general term for symptoms like decline in memory, reasoning, or other thinking skills, and then go around the bottom where it says Alzheimer's is a cause of dementia, and Alzheimer's is a specific brain disease that accounts for 60 to 80% of dementia cases. So then it goes around the top, it's a type of dementia, a type and a cause. Okay, so what are some of the other types of dementia besides Alzheimer's? I have a family version. It's Lewy body dementia. That's one. Anybody else?
Frontal lobal, what is it? The thing that Bruce Willis has, frontal lobal, something or other.
Yes, very topic, very timely too. Lewy body dementia, frontal temporal disorders, vascular dementia, just to name three. Is dementia a normal part of aging?
No.
Correct. No, it's not. And here's an example of normal aging by Dr. David Rubin at the UCLA David Geffen School of Medicine. He equates aging, a normal biological phenomenon, to a computer processor up in your brain that doesn't work quite as quickly. An example, when a word or phrase is on the tip of your tongue and you find yourself saying, just give me a few minutes and it'll pop back in. Such retrieval deficits are very common with aging. I like that example. So how does the body die then from Alzheimer's?
It shuts down some of the functions. I can't remember which ones.
Yeah, that's it. They've broken it down into 6 phases. And in the last phase, phase 6, the plaque reaches the control center part of the brain that controls breathing and heart rate. And this was the TED Ed speakers charts that were very easy to follow, I thought. Heart rate and breathing are overpowered and the body shuts down. So what we started watching was 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's. And these were not really to be a checklist, but it was so useful to start identifying things either in yourself or other people, because one of the things, like the Bruce Willis example, is if you know sooner rather than later, then you can start taking advantage of some of the support systems out there for you. So, memory loss that disrupts daily life, challenges in planning or solving problems, difficulty completing familiar tasks, confusion with time or place. Oh, see, I'm already in trouble. Trouble understanding visual images or spatial relationships, new problems with words in speaking or writing, misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace your steps, decreased or poor judgment, withdrawal from social activities, and changes in mood or personality. So the big thing is, what happens next? Well, they say, get informed, find out about that medical exam for early diagnosis, and learn what support services are already out there. And here's a bit more on the Bruce Willis example. There was an article in fortune.com just yesterday saying that his family missed a common early dementia symptom, and his daughter said that he was diagnosed with aphasia, which falls under the frontotemporal dementia. And they had ignored his vague unresponsiveness and called it the Hollywood hearing loss. He just, he got too much noise in all those Die Hard movies. And so they missed it. And so what they are suggesting is, please contact your doctor, who will ask, what are the symptoms? When did the symptoms begin? Are they getting worse? Is it interfering with your daily life? And then they'll refer everyone to a neuropsychological exam, which at the very least can provide a record of your baseline cognitive functioning. Okay. Well, what I'm going to do now is refer us back to the last half of that tape on how to find support. So I will let's see. Share again and go to
going to look like. And we absolutely want everybody
Can everyone
in
hear?
the session to think about what they can do to get support. And you know, as we think about where there is help available, we know that when somebody is exhibiting the symptoms, they may not always be aware of it, or even people close in the family may not be aware of it. But it's so important for people, whether they live alone or whether they're close to family and friends, to get to a doctor and to get evaluated. And make sure that you're really honest and open with those healthcare professionals about whatever kind of memory loss concern there is. You know, knowing that you've seen some changes in somebody is a starting point for the conversation. And actually learning more about Alzheimer's or dementia can help people ease that anxiety to prepare for whatever the next test is going to be, or whatever that next piece of the journey is going to look like. We know that there are all kinds of conditions that cause memory loss or affect thinking or affect behavior that are not Alzheimer's or dementia. So it's important to get a full workup and understand in that medical evaluation really what's going on. And if the cause is not Alzheimer's or dementia, then it could be another condition. And it would be tragic to imagine that you didn't take action when there was something that we could have been treating. If it is dementia, then there's so many benefits to receiving an early and accurate diagnosis, including the opportunity to plan for the future, to think about getting support services for yourself and for those around you, and exploring the medications and treatments that may help delay those symptoms for some time. We also know that getting an earlier diagnosis helps you get linked into information and support. And through the Alzheimer's Association, we have a 24/7 helpline that you can reach anytime at 1-800-272-3900. You can speak to a master's level clinician or social worker about your concerns and really figure out what those next steps should be. You're also welcome to go to the Alzheimer's Association and AARP's Community Resource Finder. And you can find that at communityresourcefinder.org to find local resources, such as a healthcare professional or your closest Alzheimer's Association chapter to you. We have a training and education center that you can visit to take any online course and even learn more about a variety of topics, like more information on Alzheimer's or dementia, or many different caregiving topics. And we also encourage people to create an action plan using an Alzheimer's navigator to help you figure out what some of those next steps may very well be. We've put a link in the chat to access a special web page compiling all the resources that we mentioned during this webinar. And if you're pre-registered for this webinar, by giving us your email address, you'll receive a follow-up with all of this information as well. So as we think about getting support and opening up this conversation so that others can help you, Arthena, I'm curious, why was it important for you to see a doctor about the symptoms you were experiencing?
It was really important, Stephanie, because the first thing was my father and 6 of his brothers and sisters had Alzheimer's. And so it was like a generational thing that was going on with me. But the most important thing to me was with me knowing that I wanted my children and my new grandchildren to not have to suffer or to go through what I'm going through now. I wouldn't want this, in all honesty, I would not want this disease for anyone. I would not want anyone to have to wonder every day what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't want them to wonder, am I going to wake up and not know my name or know what today is? I want everybody, you know, so I'm very, very adamant about that with my children. You know, if you find there's a problem, if you can't remember, I don't care if it goes on for a while, please go to the doctor, please. Just, you know, that when I say that, and I think if it wasn't for, and I say this and I always get real teary when I think this, but if it was not for the Alzheimer's Association, I would not be where I am now. My husband tells me that every day. He praises them. He praises them more than I do, because he was so adamant now that we thought at this point at this stage, 5 years, that I would not be where I am now. He always says if it wasn't for the Alzheimer's Association, I would be at home laying in a bed, not talking. So I say, have the opportunity, if there's any issue, if you have a parent, if you have children, and there's an issue, please go, because they have given me everything that I need. They started me with just a small group. I went to the early stage with my early stage brothers and sisters, and I moved on. So I say, I can't press this to, please call. It's a free number. I called, and that's where I started. And that's where I'm going to keep going, because it's all about knowing.
Oh, it is. And I so appreciate your candor and your courage for bringing forth your story, because I am confident you will inspire others to really share with others in their family, other neighbors, other friends about what's happening in their own world. And Pippi, I'm curious from your perspective, you have connected so many people to help and resources. What do you hear consistently that people really need in navigating that diagnosis and next steps?
I'm gonna say our biggest that we need to have out there, Stephanie, is just awareness itself, because awareness will get you to the next step. And our website, alz.org, you can't go to a better resource. We have so many things happening within the organization that were not there for my family when my mother was dealing with this. And we need to make sure we have those conversations, and for people to not only educate themselves, but to educate others. I think that is just something we need to all follow up on at all times, because the person that you don't know needs to hear what you have to say will be standing there next to you, and ask the right questions and go to the right place to find the answers.
So true. And, you know, so much of this starts with education, which is why I applaud every one of you for joining today. Even if you just are clear about the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia after this webinar, that's a great start. And, you know, we're getting so many questions on Facebook Live and through the chat. I want to turn to some of those questions now. And probably the most common question that we're getting is, well, how is Alzheimer's or dementia really diagnosed? And, you know, we always say it starts with talking to your primary care doctor, your internal medicine, your healthcare provider, whomever that is. You want to start with that conversation, because there are some very simple in-office screening tools that can be done to help others understand what kind of memory loss might be going on. And, you know, to the point that was made earlier, you don't have to have every one of these warning sign boxes checked in order to bring up that conversation with your regular healthcare provider and suggest that maybe there is something a little bit different with your memory. Once that early screening has been done, many times then a referral is made to either a neurologist or a geriatrician or even a geropsychiatrist to do a deeper level of testing. And that could involve things like scans like an MRI. It certainly is going to involve more memory tests, oftentimes blood tests, to make sure that those other causes of dementia are ruled out, and that we really get a clear picture of what's happening. And through that process, you will oftentimes discover that there are more signs there than maybe you really initially first thought about. So that process is incredibly important to lead to the conclusion of not only understanding, is there dementia, again, those symptoms, but if there is dementia, then what type? And if it's Alzheimer's disease, there's medications and FDA approved drugs that are very specific for that. If it's a different type of dementia, then there are different treatment pathways for those different types. So very important to have that conversation first with your primary care physician or healthcare provider, and then go from there. I know that one of the common things that's asked a lot of times as well is about treatment options. And I mentioned that there are a variety of different FDA approved medications, and there are even great new drugs in the pipeline to help slow the progression of the disease. It's important to note that the medications don't remove the presence of Alzheimer's or the presence of dementia, but they're helping to treat those symptoms. And so many people who take those medications describe that they have an easier time thinking, an easier time remembering, just changes that they see and experience in their own self. So that's part of the reason that we encourage early discussion. It just helps to get those medications started when that's the right pathway for you. So I'm curious, Arthena, from your perspective, what did you experience with diagnosis? Did it start with your regular doctor?
It started with my regular doctor, but he couldn't see it. Because I had been a patient of his for 18 years. He could not see it, and I was so young. I was 51, so he just couldn't see it. I was referred to a neurologist, who again said, "You're 51. I don't know. I think maybe it's just maybe a thyroid issue or something like that." But he finally sent me on to a neuropsychiatrist who, after maybe 2 hours of testing, I think we got into 3 hours, and he kept asking me all these questions. And I was laughing because he asked me to name 30 animals, and I couldn't name 30 animals. And he thought, and you could almost see the look on his face that something was going. He kept saying, for your educational level and stuff, that's kind of strange. And he asked me to do math problems. So it went on. And finally, at the end of the conversation, he said, and I was in tears because I knew that he knew that something was wrong. And I think after about 2 months of testing and so forth, he came back and said that that's what it was. So that's how it started. But it started out with me asking my regular physician to see a neurologist. And we went from there.
Yeah, very typical pathway, and such an important conversation to have, right? So that you can figure out what is that next step. And Pippi, one of the questions that came in live, I think is just so critical. It's the question that I hear all the time. Is it possible that symptoms sort of come and go from one day to the next or 1 week to the next? And if someone has a quote good day, does that mean that they don't have dementia? How would you answer that, Pippi?
That would be nice if that was the case. Yes, they do come and go. And during the stages of dementia, as they go in from the first stage into the second, you will see that it is more of a daily incident of what those symptoms are that they have. But yes, it does come and go. And 1 minute you'll think, oh, well, she's okay today. So maybe it was just something we didn't know about. A lot of times a urinary tract infection can have the brain fog that Alzheimer's.
Oops, sorry.
Or a dementia will give you. And so, yes, there are some things. And the quicker you have the diagnosis, the quicker you have a plan and can make the adjustments within your own family unit of how you will execute that plan.
Yeah, for sure. And to your point, it's easy when you see those fluctuations to almost start to doubt yourself and think, well, maybe I'm being hypercritical of somebody's memory or thinking. So one of the techniques that we often encourage is write it down, write down those instances where you notice that something is off, something is different than that person's baseline, so that when you get to that physician visit, you can say, well, here's what I'm observing. And I always encourage whoever goes to the doctor to take somebody with you, somebody who knows you well and knows what is, quote, normal, and then can say, well, here's what I've noticed, here's what I've noticed. Help the physician try to put those puzzle pieces together, because it's challenging. On any given day, it can look very different in the early stages. One of the questions that also comes in frequently is, now that we have a diagnosis, what do we need to do next? And certainly there are fantastic Alzheimer's Association resources that I mentioned and that I encourage you to consider. Things like getting connected to more education, getting connected to support, whether that means finding a support group in your local area that fits your flavor, or using one of our online support systems. So we've got different ways that we can connect you to other caregivers so that you can learn from others. We encourage you not to sit at home with this disease and just wonder, but take action, right? Take that step to not only understand for yourself and the implications for others around you, but then also get involved with the association so that you can channel that energy and make sure that you yourself are feeling more positive and more upbeat because you're engaged in this big cause. And you're showing, like Arthena has to all of us, how attitude means everything, and how you really do encourage others just by sharing your own story. So as we're wrapping up today, I know, Kabi, that your journey with your mom's Alzheimer's ended years ago. I'm curious, in our closing comments, what you would leave with others about what gives you hope today.
Wow. Well, the first person that gives me hope is Arthena, because Arthena is able to tell us her journey. When we went back to 1992, I can remember sitting in the doctor's office and saying, what next? And when we left, my dad didn't even want to talk about it. And it was something that was almost hush hush. Nobody had those conversations. You didn't know what to watch for. What gives me hope is knowing that the Alzheimer's Association is there for so many people, that they stick to the mission. They mean a world without Alzheimer's or other dementias. And everything they do is centered around that. We have so much research out there now. We are so close. We're so close to a blood test. We're so close to a Biogen drug. We're so close. And that research that has changed because of the advocacy through the Alzheimer's Association, because we have gone in just a 10-year period from simply having a $408 million NIH budget for research to now $2.8 billion for research. And it is moving very fast. And that gives me hope, and it gives me the space to be able to say to anyone at any time, alz.org, 1-800-272-3900. And your resources are there, because sometimes you don't have those resources and you are never alone.
That is such a wonderful testimony, Pippi. And, I applaud you for sharing your story, not just with us today, but I think of all the countless lives that you have helped because you've been open and you've been honest about this. And what a way to honor your mom's legacy, because certainly she would be very proud to know that this little kernel, this little spark that got started in you now this many years later is still going to help others. And Arthena, I want to ask the same question of you. You've said before that you don't want your grandkids to experience this and that you don't want anybody else to experience this disease. So what gives you hope?
What gives me hope is that even though it may not be in my lifetime, that this disease may go away. I just continue hope that I can tell as many people. What gives me hope is knowing that I can tell my story. I can tell my story. The people who are in my early stage group, they can tell the story. You know, people who have it now, because we have so many people now who are going through this journey that are younger. So they can tell the story. And as long as you are telling the story and telling the story to, because one person will tell another person, will tell another person. As long as we can tell the story, let people see that even though we have this disease, we're living joyfully with it every day. And so therefore it is not anything, because the biggest part that we have, problem we have with Alzheimer's is a stigma that nobody wants. Like Pippi said, they don't want anybody to know. I don't want anybody to know. Well, now people are less having a problem telling people, I have this. I have it. I'm living with it. You may have it. So if you can get the people out of the closet with it, that makes it so much better. So my biggest hope is that by the time my new grandson, who is 2 months old, by the time he is even, as he grows, eventually it will be a word, they'll be like, what was Alzheimer's? No more. That's what I hope for.
Well, you, Arsena and Pippi, are such inspirations because you are telling your story so well. And it truly gives me hope that not only will we conquer this disease, but that we someday will have that world without Alzheimer's. And as we're, wrapping up today, I just want to thank both of you for sharing with such great candor your story, and to everybody who paused for a moment today to attend this discussion and think about what it means in your life. I want to thank you. I appreciate you for taking the time. We're glad you made the time to join us, and please know that the Alzheimer's Association is here. If you need additional support, either online or in your own community, go to the Alzheimer's Association website, alz.org, and you'll get linked to those. And for additional resources, tip sheets, trainings related to the 10 warning signs, and updates on future sessions like this, please visit training.alz.org/AlzTalks. Thank you for joining today.
Isn't that great?
Yeah,
Well,
I have to say, Laura, I've learned more about this in the last 39 minutes than I've learned that I knew over the last 60 plus years. So this is really helpful.
oh, thank you for saying it, Bill or Steve. That really helps, because I just love finding these resources, but it's tricky because Alzheimer's is there are lots of competing opinions about it, so it's hard to wade through it and find out what to even represent. So
I did have one question. I was listening, and I went on the website she mentioned, and I haven't looked at it all, but I mean, does anyone know, generally speaking, what I guess progress has been made over the last, let's just say, 10 years in recognizing, preventing, and then I don't know what's the word. Progress in treatment, I guess. What's kind of been, is that moving ahead? Is it because obviously my mom has it. I'm just interested in, probably have to do more research, but generally speaking, are we making progress in treating dementia and Alzheimer's and all those other conditions?
well, I wish I had a definitive answer for you. I can tell you some of the things that I found out that are encouraging, and some that are very distressing. I just as you know, the original talk we were going to listen to was by two people from Alzheimer's Association who were praising this new drug by Biogen called lecanemab. And lecanemab has turned out to be a nest of alternate opinions. As I said, they were taken, the companies were under a congressional investigation. The FDA approved it so quickly, even though their own experts said there's not enough done. They had around 1,000 people over an 18-month period. What kind of that, that's very short, and that's a very small sample size to take. So especially considering that the 35-year study with 10,000 people told us that as heart arteries stiffen, it lowers the blood supply to the brain. I mean, that's a long time. I have great hope in the what's it called, the not Cincinnati study, the I'm sorry, I can't remember it, but it's named after a town where the entire population, adult population of the town was enrolled in the study, Cleveland study. And it the results from that are interesting. Oh, look, Lorraine is here. Lorraine, can you shed any light on this through some of your research and studies?
I can't really. It is hopeful about new drugs coming on the market. And the one that you're referring to, there just isn't enough data. But the hope is that with education and understanding, that we are definitely making progress with Alzheimer's. There isn't one of us that won't have plaques on our brains. There isn't one of us that won't have memory loss. It's inevitable the longer we live. It's just a fact. But the fact that people aren't being ashamed, people are talking about Alzheimer's, they're talking about dementia is a good thing. My parents lived to 86 and 94. Both had dementia, and that makes sense. Both had plaque on the brain. I enjoyed the presentation, but one thing I do disagree with, we can't do anything about our genetics, but one of the things that's under our locus of control is we can exercise our brains. And by exercising our brains, we can do puzzles, we can do artwork, we can journal, we can do drawings, we can be attentive to our circumstances and what's going on around us. We can journal, we can do all of those things because we once thought that the brain wouldn't develop neurons. We got X number and that was it. That's not true. The more we learn, the more neurons we develop. So that's under our control. Pay attention to the newspaper, even if you can't read everything that's in it. Look at a book. Go for a walk, observe what you see, do a puzzle, even if you're doing the wrong answer. Do a dot drawing, even if your dots don't make any sense. What I do is a neuropsych part, and I do neuropsych testing to find out the diagnosis, whether or not you have early stage dementia. And so one of the things I'd like to suggest to you is to take a piece of paper and draw a clock and make sure you can do all the times. For example, now I've got 10:48. Make sure you can do 10:48 on your clock drawing. Look at some pictures of some animals. Maybe you don't remember what a rhinoceros looks like. I don't either. but take a look at some pictures. Take a look at adding some numbers, even if you're getting the wrong answers. My point is about exercising your brain. That is under your control. I think the Alzheimer's Association has so much information and provides so much support. So in that sense, we're very lucky. There are exercises online for memory clinics. We all get some retrieval problems as we age. You can't remember person's name. You can't remember the date. You can't remember what you went into a room to get. You go out, you come back again, and you still can't remember. That's okay. It really is okay. But
Yes, all of the above.
Yes, I'm raising my hand too.
early diagnosis is super important. It's super important in terms of how you will function in your life. And it's just a matter of time before medications are much better.
Thank you, Lorraine. I'm from your position as a therapist, I am so happy to have you because I know you've been helping people with these tests.
Well, that's what I do for a living.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not, as sharp as I once was. It's true. You have to try to exercise your brain every day and as much as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
It's nice to see Bill and Kathleen today.
It sure is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
And I see that John Stansbury made it on his iPhone. Thanks, John. I know you're out in the wilds somewhere.
Hi, John.
And let's see, I just see your name as Katza. Kathy?
Catherine.
Catherine. Thank you, Catherine. How was this for you?
Oh, it's helpful, interesting. I took notes.
Well, and that information, I can put that slide up again with all of the different things that she listed. They are on that one page, and it is so much information. Let me just do that so that you can have it. All of those resources that she there. The Alzheimer Association helpline 24/7, and you get to talk to a I think she said a senior level clinician. The training.alzheimers.org's all talks and resources, and it's not backslash, those are called forward slashes. And the Alzheimer Community Resource Finder.com. Oh, wait, is it .com or .org?
Hello?
Org. Thank you. This is not the, if you go to that page, you'll find what she means by the Alzheimer Navigator.
About 10 minutes. Don't you want to talk after that? Okay. Okay.
Is there a way for me to capture that page?
Yes, you can take a picture of the screen
Like, okay.
and let me see if I think I can move this out of the way. Are the pictures of everyone in your shot or not? Is it just me?
Yes,
Yes.
or some of them.
Okay. Move them up there. And really that have you got a picture?
No, I'm
You're writing them? Okay.
No, okay, if you need to go.
No,
Um,
no, apparently I have to hold these pictures out or they go away. But the training.alz.org, ALZ talks and resources, that is an amazing page. It's got
Okay.
all the clickable things you need to go to all these other resources. The community
right.
resource finder, the Alzheimer's navigator, and even the trial match. So you could jump into a clinical trial.
Talks slash, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, sure. So. Lorraine, I have a question for you. Is asking about 30 animals, is that like a usual question?
No. No, it isn't. However, it's allowable. You should be able to identify them if you're shown pictures of them.
Ah,
You may not be able to say 30 animals. I don't think I can say 30 animals.
okay. I feel better already.
Good, good.
Did we cover the subject enough so that when we go to the picnic next month, we can have a break?
Yeah, that's really good stuff, Laura.
Oh, good. And also, there won't be a program in August. We're taking another break and we'll start up again in September with the Tell Us Your Story. So we love hearing from people what you have, how did you get here? How did you find Mended Hearts? What kind of challenges did you have that could bring you here and could make a difference to someone to hear about? That was our a very big meeting. It was well attended last year, so I'm sure it'll be another hit for all of us to learn from everyone else.
Laura, you're leaving out one significant aspect about the September meeting.
That's right. Oh, will you go ahead, Carter?
Well, as many of you know, we've been trying to find our way back into a physical location, which is where we were prior to COVID. And of course, whatever physical location we find, we would still be offering a hybrid solution for those who want to come and those who want to Zoom. And we were kind of at a stalemate for a while. And I forgot how we found Gigi, but we found a lady who found us, I think, who's got a long history or 10 or 12 years with Kaiser. And she knew who to go to. And they've agreed to give us back whatever room, one of those rooms downstairs. They wanted to give it to us in June, but we decided it was a little too soon to start. And as Laura points out, July is the picnic, and we take August off. So the September meeting will be hybrid, and the people who want to come in person will be at the Broadway location of Kaiser, and we're really excited that I think we had a lot of people who would like to come to the meeting for the camaraderie and the socialization as well as the programming, and we've lost a lot of them from Zoom, and then there's a lot of people who just aren't comfortable participating in Zoom. So mark that on your calendar.
Yes.
Good.
Wow.
That's
And
great.
it took efforts from all kinds of people. Susan Myers was helpful, and Sherry just was trying to be the bug in their ear that everywhere they looked, they got Sherry Aylesworth to ask them about our room. She was wonderful. And
Steve M.
and what? And-
Steve M. did a lot of research with her.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to dismiss the long efforts that all the ladies and gentlemen you posted. Yes, it was, but it just felt like we were Sisyphus or whoever it was. We were just pushing that stone, and Fortunately, we got a breakthrough.
Yes, and I'd also like to thank May, who went around with me to all of the sites that we looked for that might be good, and went to all of the adult, what is it, Oakland's adult senior centers. And we went to places on Alameda, like the Alameda Fitness Center, that would let us have one of their rooms that the Weight Watchers also use. It was a room full of mirrors, however. That was a bit off-putting for me. But we spent several months working through, trying to find someone that we could, somewhere that we could go that wouldn't be very costly. And now we're back at Kaiser, which is wonderful. And the only change is I think they charge $1 for parking. So that's compared to, what was it, $20 for parking over at Summit. And we could have their wonderful Center for Health Education, but to park, if you were parking on a hill, if you could find a spot with a meter to feed, or in their parking lot, their parking structure that belonged to the hospital, and they had a set fee for that per hour. So this is magnificent. And we'll Carter, you and I are going to go in, right, and do a dry run with Gigi and someone else to make sure we've got all the equipment that works with an Apple computer, and
Right,
we'll
right.
go through their projector and audio system too. So,
And as I recall, and I'm not sure it was where it was on the list of reasons people came, but snacks were quite prevalent. So we have to start worrying about those.
well, that's May as in charge of hospitality.
Right.
Get out your recipes.
Yeah. Well, I see we are approaching 11 o'clock. And although I love having our meetings go, or at least be able to go to 11:30, especially if it's a lively discussion and we've got a real, person who we want to talk to and do things with. But I think we're winding down, so we can actually say goodbye.
Right. Hope everyone
Thank
has a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Just thank you, Laura. It was a great summary.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
See you at the
Bye-bye.
picnic.